Look, I've been pretty against blowing up entire franchises and trying to build them from the ground up in one offseason, but what if I'm wrong? Let's give it a shot on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You like that? 3, 1, 2, 3. You like it?
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much to my hashtag everydayers, those of you who come around and listen every single day to the Locked On Vikings podcast and make it your first listen every single day. I appreciate y'all so very much. You make this thing go. If you are new here, hello and welcome. You came in a weird day. That's all right. You can always find the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts, whether that is at like a podcast listening app like SiriusXM. You can also just search out any sports team and you can find hometown radio broadcasts of their games, like search out the Timberwolves or whatever. You can also find the show on YouTube or Amazon Fire and Roku. Just download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Today on the show is a bit of a yearly tradition. I think I've done this every single offseason that I've had control over Locked On Vikings, which would make this the 5th season, I think, of doing the blow it all up plan. We spent a lot of time talking about which direction do you go, do you try to hang on to assets and, what about the run it back, or do you just go into a rebuild and all that stuff? And I usually find myself pretty staunchly against the idea of blowing everything up and being where the Panthers are right now, right? I usually don't like being there, but a lot of you disagree, and I respect that. And so every year I try to go through the best version I can think of the plan where you blow it all up. And the way I think of this is, what if the Wilfs sold the Vikings to somebody who hated the Vikings, like a Vikings fan, who really just thought that everything on the team was poison and just wanted to get rid of as much as possible and totally hard reset the cap, reset the roster, reset everything, just like nuke it down to rubble. And with that, you will amass a lot of assets. And the question I'm really trying to answer is, can the Vikings turn a profit, essentially, by selling off all the players they have, essentially liquidating them, right? Turning them into assets, and then using those assets to buy other talent? Can you come out ahead? So I'm going to do my level best to do that. Obviously, I have a hypothesis that's really hard to pull off, but hey, let's see, right? Don't knock it till you try it. So that's what we're going to do. So basically what I've done here is come up with a couple of rules for this to sort of guide me. For one, no extensions. My goal here is to amass assets, right? But I can't do that via extension. I can't do that via, spending more money on someone like Kirk Cousins. Cousins is walking. Danielle Hunter is walking. Everybody whose contract is up is walking. I will also be getting rid of most of the core of the team. And the rules that I set out for this was, it has to be, if I can save more money than I incur in dead cap for the 2024 season, I'm cutting that player. Or you can think of that, if I can save about half their cap hit or more of their cap hit, then I'm cutting that player. And if I can do that by doing a post-June cut or a trade or something like that, then that's going to happen as well. So that essentially gets rid of everybody. The only ones that are going to go untouched are rookie deals. So we do get to keep Christian Darrisaw and Cam Bynum here, but those are kind of the only established players. And, Jordan Addison, right? Guys on rookie deals aren't going anywhere. Even a team in a full rebuild probably isn't going to cut all their rookie deals. So let's try to at least keep this somewhat in the realm of reality. But what that is going to create is a fully unrealistic scenario that will never happen in the league ever. Even teams that go full on, let's nuke this thing, what the Bears did a couple years ago, don't go this hard. We're going to go harder than anybody because I think it's fun. And let's just see where it ends up, right? And this will probably be too extreme of a scenario, but it'll help us figure out what is a good middle ground, right? So I have the over the cap calculator up. to help me keep track of where we are in terms of cap. And the goal here is going to be to get rid of all these players and then build a 53-man roster that would feel like can be, can have a future, can be a contender with a future, right? That's what we want to do. If 2024 itself is a bit of a down year, we're kind of taking that on the chin, right? That's going to be okay. But we really want to be set up to do this in the future, and we want to be set up as quickly as possible. The last thing we want to do is make Vikings fans wait, right? Just one before I die, right? We don't want to be sitting here in the middle of a tank while everyone's grandpa is dying without a Lombardi trophy. That would be quite the bummer. So with that said, here is what happens when you apply those rules to the Vikings. And this is going to be another one where a visual aid is used, which means I'm just screen recording as I look at the cap calculator and as I look at a mock draft simulator. So I'll be descriptive. I'll say names, I'll say numbers, but there's a lot of proper nouns flying around. So if that might be difficult for you to track without a visual, I recommend coming into the YouTube version or going to your smart TV and watching it there. But if you are just listening because you're in the car or whatever, don't worry. I've got you in mind. We'll be just fine. All right. So let's take a look at exactly how much damage we did. You can see the salary cap space up at the top. For a shortcut for the answer here of how much cap space these rules created, the Vikings are now sitting at $126 million in 2024 cap space and $197 million in 2025 cap space. Virtually no commitments in 2026 and literally no commitments in 2027. There are now no players under contract for 2027. So we have very much exploded the team here. So the way that this worked out, Kirk Cousins, Danielle Hunter, and Marcus Davenport all walk. Brian O'Neill, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Alexander Madison all got traded. What they got traded for, we will get to later, but for now, for cap purposes, it was actually possible to get the requisite savings by trading them. O'Neill and Hawkinson were traded post-June. For trades, you can't designate a trade post-June, so we actually have to physically wait till after the draft. So Hawkinson and O'Neill won't be on our final team, but they also won't be providing us draft picks, and we're going to do a big mock draft with all of this. They would give us draft picks for the 2025 draft, which are still valuable, but we won't be able to really see what the deal is with them. Also, for cap casualty reasons, cut Harrison Smith, managed to actually get a little bit. Byron Murphy was close enough. He saves 5.3 mil, incurs 5.6 dead, whatever, that's close enough. And we are blowing this thing way up. Harrison Phillips also is a pre-June 1st cut. We're also cutting some smaller players. AJ Green is a corner that sort of snuck onto the roster late in the season. He's making over $1 million, so he technically gets caught. Andrew DePaola we're getting rid of. Nick Mullins we're getting rid of. CJ Ham. Also, you save about half of his contract, and then you've got some post-June 1st cuts that save a little bit more on the immediate cap in Josh Oliver, Garrett Bradbury, and Dean Lowry. To be honest, the post-June 1st guys, you don't really need to do to like save cap space, and technically that is borrowing from the future to make more cap space now. But it is necessary to make it fit within the rules, and it just feels a little bit more in the spirit of the exercise to like cut more people. So that's what we're doing. So the roster as it stands is down to Jaren Hall is the only QB we have under contract. We have just Ty Chandler and Kene Nwangwu. We've got a few more receivers in Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, Malik Knowles, and Lucky Jackson, who are futures contracts that have already been signed. Christian Darrisaw and Ed Ingram are the only two O-linemen we have under contract. Jaquelin Roy is the only interior D lineman, and on the outside, it's Patrick Jones and Andre Carter. Linebackers are Ivan Pace, Brian Asamoah, and William Quinku. Corners, we actually have a little bit more of a complete room. Andrew Booth, Caleb Evans, Mekhi Blackman, and Najee Thompson. And then the safety room actually is untouched by these rules. It's still Bynum, Metellus, Theo Jackson, Jay Ward, and Lewis Seen. The only change is cutting Harrison Smith, which all of my cap simulations have sort of assumed that he's retiring anyways. And then we only have one specialist left in Ryan Wright as we let Greg Joseph walk and we cut the long snapper. So let's see what we can do to build up from the ashes. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is online therapy made easy. I don't know about you, but I've been in therapy for years, and it is incredibly helpful to me just as a maintenance thing. A lot of people see therapy as this really difficult thing to like admit that you need, and you don't need to need it. It's probably just a good idea. It's just a healthy habit. So if you want to get started in therapy, BetterHelp can be a great tool because a therapist needs to be tailored to you. If it's somebody that doesn't vibe with you, doesn't understand you and your needs, it can go pretty south pretty fast, and BetterHelp understands that. So they built their whole situation on trying to get you hooked up with someone that's right for you. So visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off of your first month and get into therapy entirely online if you want, convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And by the way, thanks again for hanging out during this very weird episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast. For if you're just looking for like draft breakdowns or whatever, check out patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL. Just did Chop Robinson, working on Byron Murphy II next, D-tackle out of Texas. And we'll keep rolling with that. You can also check out the 24/7 streaming channel for all things Minnesota sports at Locked On Minnesota Sports. Go find that live stream for Locked On Minnesota stuff, whether it's this show, Locked On Wolves, Twins, Wild, all day, every day. Okay, so let's talk about free agents. I have a number of them because we've made a lot of cap space here, all right? So this is what we're doing. And for free agents, I wanted to try to avoid the skimpy ones. I'm not looking for necessarily the value plays because it feels like the whole point of this is to be able to sign the big names, right? So let's get as many of those big names as possible. And let's start with a big one, which is Brian Burns. I don't even think he's going to hit free agency, but we're already way into La La Land. So making that assumption is not something that I'm going to have a problem with at all. As always, I am using Brad Spielberger's contract projections for this. For Brian Burns, he says he actually put the franchise tag on the contract projection, so he doesn't have like a true one for if he hit free agency. So I'm going to outdo the franchise tag. And sign him to a $26 million deal. I think the franchise tag is like 21 or 24 or something like that. So I'm going to do a $21 million signing bonus and then try to escalate things from there. So this will be a $5 million cap hit for 2020 or base salary for 2024. And then we'll sort of try to scale things up from there. So we'll do $24 million in 2025 and then $28 million in 2026. We're going to sign Jonathan Greenard next, who had something of a breakout season in Houston. He's had some good years in Houston, but he really hit the mainstream. There was even a whole thing, people arguing on Twitter if he's better than Danielle Hunter or not. Well, doesn't matter for this one. We're signing him to $16 million a year, and I'm not going to bother like signing bonus stuff on all of these because, to be frank, I don't have to. But in reality, if this were an actual scenario and strategy that a team employed, they'd work way harder on the contracts than I am doing. I'm just doing this a little bit back of the envelope, and let's see if we can afford these guys in general. And spoiler alert, we're not really going to come up against the cap here. Next up, so we traded Justin Jefferson away for draft picks, right? So our wide receiver room is pretty cooked. So I'm bringing in Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, he has a very weird contract situation. Because of the terms of the trade with Atlanta. Atlanta only gets their picks if Jacksonville signs him to an extension. So Jacksonville can let Calvin Ridley walk and essentially get away scot-free. PFF Brad projects a 3-year, $17 million contract. I am going to use a little bit of a signing bonus on this one, a $15 million signing bonus. That means $2 million salary in 2024, and then just a flat $17 million for the other ones. Just to kind of keep things even and moving along here. I'm also going to throw in a couple of the free agents that I signed for the other version of this cap exercise, which is a little bit more, not quite a realistic one, but more realistic than this. Those are a couple of Bengals. DJ Reader, who signed for 3 years, 15 and a quarter per year. And also Chidobe Awuzie, who signs a 2-year deal with $10.5 million per year on that. We still have a long way to go here. Let's take a look at let's do the bridge quarterback. So here's part of it, right? We're very clearly aiming to get a new quarterback in here. We're aiming at the draft. But in the event that we have to draft somebody who's maybe a little more raw and perhaps needs a year, I don't want to be relying on Jaren Hall. So I'm going to bring in Jacoby Brissett for 1 year at $6.5 million, just to kind of have that insurance policy. And that's a little bit more bargain bin than I'm always looking, but we're not looking for, a Baker Mayfield 3-year deal or something like that. We're not looking to bring in somebody that can actually like possibly maybe be the future, which is the way I think Tampa is looking at Baker Mayfield. And they'll probably bring him back for that reason. We're not trying to do anything like that. And we're not bringing Kirk back to like be the guy. We just want somebody to maybe hold down the fort while the rookie gets ready. And I think Brissett is perfect for that. I also am going to, let's look at the trenches now. I've got Michael Onwenu, who is very much like a swing guy. I'm going to have to slot him in at right tackle if I don't get any right tackles in the draft, but we can swing that because he has played all over the line for New England. His contract, as it is a 4-year deal per the PFF projections that I am beholden to, I am going to use a signing bonus there. It's $4.5 million base salary with a $10 million signing bonus, and then $14.5 million even for the other 3 years of the deal. So his cap hit it won't scale at all. And this is a super lazy contract. That's not very realistic. It's kind of bugging me, but we'll get there. That will give us a little bit more flexibility. And then we do need to fill out the rest of that. I'm actually going to bring in Kevin Zeitler because, again, we're like going for name value a little bit here, right? Now, PFF Brad is giving us a smaller projection for him, $7.5 million per year in a 2-year deal. That's mostly because of age. And so what is happening here is I'm signing a pretty old offensive line that's going to have a really shaky future. So I'm going to try to focus on getting some more developmental guys on that offensive line when we get to the draft, and hoping that I have a whole bunch of extra draft picks, and that will help me sort of bolster out the depth, because this is going to be a very top-heavy roster. Obviously, I'm signing a whole bunch of expensive free agents. And then finally, I'm going to bring in Lloyd Cushenberry, which is maybe the most realistic free agent option here in the world where you cut Garrett Bradbury post-June for cap space, and you bring in Lloyd Cushenberry, who is a more expensive player, but he's familiar with Chris Cooper. He's familiar. He's played pretty well. He's somebody that I've coveted in the past when there seemed to be trouble with him in Denver. And we're going to do basically the same contract that we did for Michael Onwenu, a 4-year deal worth 14 and change per year. As a quick cap space checkup, people can see this if they're watching on YouTube, but if not, we're down to 46 mil for the 2024 season and 61 mil for the 2025 season. We actually do have over 130 million in 2026 liabilities now because we've signed a bunch of deals, but like none of that's dead, right? That's all 4 players that will be on the team. We just kind of already have that roster halfway constructed. You can kind of think of it as, but I am not yet done. I need a linebacker, and I'm going for Jordan Brooks, who I absolutely love as a free agent target. I do not think that Seattle will let him walk, but I don't know. Maybe since they got rid of Pete Carroll, they won't be as excited about him. He's going to sign a 3-year deal worth $12 million a year. We're going to bring in a couple of tight ends. This exercise cut and or traded the entire tight end room. So I'm actually going to bring in 2 tight ends. One is Noah Fant, who will sign a 3-year deal worth $8 million a year. And I actually did a little bit of a signing bonus on that one too. And then I'm also going to bring in a fit of hilarity, Adam Troutman. He signs a 2-year deal worth $4.5 million per year. And then we don't actually need to get a running back. We can run with the Alexander Madison, Ty Chandler thing. Both of those guys are under oh no, I'm sorry. We traded Alexander Madison because we can actually save money that way. So we got Ty Chandler in a dream. I don't think that's good enough. And we're going for the big names, right? So how about Josh Jacobs this time, signing a 3-year deal worth $11.5 million a year? Why? Because we can. Is that good value? Maybe, maybe not, but we don't care about value. We just made so much cap space that we can just throw it around willy-nilly like that. So we are going to throw in Morgan Cox as a long snapper. He will sign for the vet min, as he kind of always does as a long snapper. He's a good long snapper for the Titans. And we'll also bring in Will Lutz as a kicker, who he's going to sign for $4.5 million. So we've got over $14 million in cap space left for 2024. I definitely think we're going to need most of that for the draft class and contingency and stuff. So I think we're just about out of money if we want to be reasonable here. And we have $23 million left in 2025 to help deal with whatever problems come up. So now it's time for the draft. We're going to pull up a mock draft simulator. We're going to make sure we get our money's worth for Justin Jefferson and see just exactly how far that can take us. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. And just because football season isn't on doesn't mean there aren't some great grambles out there, especially if you are a new member of FanDuel. If you go sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon and win any $5 bet, you can get $150 back in bonus bets just for winning any $5 bet. And that can be on a heavy favorite. That can be a live bet on an outcome that feels pretty certain to happen. That can be all kinds of things. You can find same game parlays there. You can find weird props and all kinds of stuff. I'm pretty sure you can bet on the combine now. You can find all sorts of stuff on FanDuel.com/lockedon, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Let's wrap this thing out. Welcome to the mock draft simulator. We have 40 total players on our roster. We're trying to get to 53. I would love to pick 13 players here, but chances are we're going to be filling out some roster spots with undrafted free agents. We're going to be a little bit thin, and that's going to have to be okay. Let us begin this draft. So I am going to let the Bears and Commanders pick. Let's be honest. They're not going to give up Caleb Williams or Drake May, which is where they go in this mock draft. I'm using the PFF sim, by the way, because they're the only one that allows you to do player trades. Patriots on the clock. Let's see if we can't turn Justin Jefferson into QB of the future by getting pick number 3. PFF says that it's got a reasonable chance to go through. Let's offer it. And it looks like the Patriots took it. So we just did Justin Jefferson for pick 3. I don't think we could have squeezed too much more out of it. Pick 3 is a lot, but we just did it straight up. We didn't have to give it pick 11 or anything. So we can still get a wide receiver and get that, Justin Jefferson replacement that we are looking for so much. But of course, we are going to draft our quarterback here. And if you've been listening to this show, you know who I'm slamming. It's Jaden Daniels. If you want more about that, you can find it on patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL, or you can go listen to a previous episode of Locked On Vikings where I talked about the guy I want most on the Vikings. I love Jaden Daniels. For now, let's move on and see what kind of wide receivers are available. Marvin Harrison goes, Malik Neighbors goes. I'm not going to be trying to trade up for any of these guys or anything. Let's just see who falls to me. And it looks like Rome Odunze fell. I really freaking like Rome. I think he kind of was the engine that made that Washington offense go and carried him all the way to the championship. So I'm not even going to look at the other options. I'm actually just going to slam Rome. That seems pretty sweet. So the only other player we have worth trading is, or on our trade block is Alexander Madison. So I'm actually just going to click that right now. I don't think you get a lot for Madison. This is really just a cap saving move, but I bet you could get like a late round swap. So I'm just thinking about who takes him. I'm going to give him to the Rams and do like let's see, 179 for 154 and Madison. Let's see if they take that. Oh, they would take that very easily. I can actually go harder. Maybe up to 100, still going to take that really easily. Up to 83, this trade will not be accepted. What if I add a 7th round pick? Nope, that's not normal. Let's just go back to the pick 100 thing and let's take that. So we managed to move a 6th rounder up to the 4th round or the compensatory 3rd round pick. And we can do that. So we got an extra day 2 pick out of the mess. We turned a day 3 pick into a day 2 pick. We can probably speed things up now. I'm not going to do like trades around here. This is already a robust enough episode. Let's just wait until pick 42, where the Vikings are up next. And look who's staring me right in the face. If you're watching this, there's a name that I'm in love with. I am very familiar with Chop Robinson, and if the sim is going to let me have him in the 2nd round, then I'm not going to look at a gift horse in the mouth. We'll just have a really cool edge room, but we do need some beef in the trenches. I'm going to focus now in the 3rd round. There's Christian Jones out of Texas. I actually think I've seen him when watching an edge rusher. I think I liked him against Dallas Turner, If that's the guy I'm thinking of, whatever. Let's slam it. I'm helmet scouting a little bit. I think I like the Texas tackle. Okay, now we are here at pick 109. Look at Spencer Rattler staring us right in the face. That's pretty fun. I would also like some depth. We're in the 4th round. We're looking for depth now. I'm going to take Myles Murphy now, even though it's a little bit of a reach per this board, because I know I don't have any picks coming up in the next 50, and I feel like I would actually oh no, I have pick 130. Oh, that would have been better, but that's okay. Well, it's fine. I'll take somebody from, oh my God, all of these Michigan interior linemen guys. No, thank you. Instead, I will take Cooper Beebe, the Kansas State guard. I've heard some pretty good things about him, I guess. We are looking for some depth at tight end. Here's a Colorado State guy, Dallin Holker. Sure. There's a halfback. There's Dylan Laube from New Hampshire. He's I've heard some stuff about him. I guess I can hit that button. Looking elsewhere, I'm still trying to get enough interior line depth, and maybe even another tackle actually would be a pretty good idea here. There's Ladarius Henderson, these Michigan guys again. Absolutely not. Can't stand the Michigan guys. Get them out of here. Julian Pearl from Illinois. If that's the left tackle, I'm okay. If this is a right tackle, he's the worst guy I've ever seen. What is his number? Does it have his number on here? Literally Google imaging him. Okay, he's 54. Yeah, no, he's clean. Yeah, let's take him. Julian Pearl, tackle for the Fighting Illini. We take those. I think we've got enough here of depth now. So now we're just kind of looking for special teamers or any interesting little names that trip our trigger here. I wonder if I can get that FAU guy. Somebody showed me the FAU D tackle, Evan Anderson, and he actually kind of rocks. Let's see if he's here. He is. Let's draft him. Evan Anderson, D-line, FAU. We're taking that in the 7th round. I believe that is my last selection. So I added 2 extra picks, including the 3rd overall pick to get Jaden Daniels. Still kept all the rest of them. Got a 3rd rounder in there. And we ended up taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys. And I will make them orange here on the roster thing. So let's read out this final roster, and then we'll talk about what we have. So I've got Jaden Daniels coming in, and waiting in the wings is Jacoby Brissett and Jaron Hall to compete. All 3 of them will compete for the day 1 start, but obviously Daniels takes over when he's ready. Josh Jacobs is going to be my running back. I still got Ty Chandler and Kenan Nwangwu doing kickoffs, with Dylan Laube also waiting in the wings. For wide receiver, I have added Calvin Ridley and Rome Odunze to Jordan Addison. Feels kind of fun. I've got Noah Fant and Adam Troutman to add to Dallin Holker. That does not feel as fun. I've got Christian Darrisaw, Ed Ingram, Lloyd Cushenberry, Kevin Zeitler, and Michael Onwenu as my veteran starters, with Christian Jones pushing on Michael Onwenu and Julian Pearl perhaps as a late round guy, and Cooper Beebe as an interior swing backup, but Onwenu also can move around. I have DJ Reader to add to Jaquelin Roy. I've also got Myles Murphy and Evan Anderson as a couple of young upstarts that are sort of my day 3 crush types. I've got Brian Burns and Jonathan Greenard at edge, with Chop Robinson, who's a game wrecker, to add to Patrick Jones and Andre Carter. I've got Jordan Brooks, Ivan Pace at linebacker, with Brian Asamoah and William Kwenku backing them up. At corner, I have Chidobe Awuzie to add to our secondary that we're already familiar with. And then again, Will Lutz and Morgan Cox as the specialists. We've still got some depth issues. Here is the deal. This is a pretty fun roster. I think, quarterback, we can just call a wash for now. I don't know if I got better or not. Kind of depends on how Jaden Daniels develops, so we'll see. At running back, we definitely got better, right? We added Josh Jacobs. At wide receiver, hard to say we got better. We really need Rome to work out, but it's really hard to say you got better than Justin Jefferson being on that team, right? At tight end, you got worse for sure. Noah Fant, not better than TJ Hawkinson. At offensive line, I think you did get worse. We got older, we got less continuity, and our succession plans really require young guys to kind of step up. I do not think you got better at O-line at all. On D-line, you definitely got thinner. You swapped Harrison Phillips out for DJ Reader and a couple of day 3 guys. I don't think you got better on defensive line, but you did get better at edge probably because you added a lot more talent, right? You had Daniil Hunter. You turned him into Brian Burns, who you can call comparable. Jonathan Greenard and Chop Robinson in there. That's really great. At linebacker, switching Jordan Hicks for Jordan Brooks, I'd call that a plus. At cornerback, we only added, we didn't subtract anybody, so that rocks. And then safety stayed more or less the same. You did lose Harrison Smith, so you got to say you got worse there. And then specialists, who cares? So you got better in some places, you got worse in some places. It feels a little bit like you spun your wheels, and you also have to understand and respect that there is a world where some of these guys don't work out, right? What if Rome isn't the guy we think he is, right? What if we got the bad wide? What if we got the Quentin Johnston this time, right? What if Josh Jacobs doesn't live up to his contract? What if Brian Burns doesn't live up to his contract in a new place? What if Jordan Brooks doesn't live up to his contract? That can happen with free agents. So we kind of have to home run all of these to even imagine a better roster here. But if you cut the players that didn't work out, right, and say, all right, you guys are cap casualties, of course, there'd be guaranteed money and signing bonus and stuff. So you're going to start taking on dead cap, and you're going to have to start restructuring and stuff. But if you're willing to do that and move on from the players that didn't work and try to keep getting there, I would say in 2 to 3 years, you probably can start to turn a profit here. But that feels like a long way to go for what is supposed to be sort of the instant gratification method of let's get rid of everything, make for a bunch of assets, and then now we can go be the crazy people we want to be in free agency. So obviously there's a bunch of caveats that make this extremely unrealistic, right? All these free agents have to say yes. They all have to work out for this to even like hit the expectation. But doesn't it kind of feel like you spun your wheels a little bit? You got rid of Byron Murphy, you replaced him with Jadobi Awuzie. You got rid of Jordan Hicks, you replaced him with Jordan Brooks. I do like Jordan Brooks better than Jordan Hicks, but also the depth at linebacker is really bad. We got William Quenku like penciled into making the roster. He has not yet made the roster on cutdown day. He's had to get there, late in the season when people are injured. The offensive line got older and lost all its continuity. Who knows if the quarterback room is better? The wide receiver room just sort of spread out its talent more, but now there's no superstar. Unless Rome just decides that he's the next Justin Jefferson, which feels like it's a pretty lucky thing to expect. It does feel like I spun my wheels a little bit, but going into 2025, I've got extra draft capital coming in from the O'Neal and Hawkinson trades. I've got a lot of money. I've got, ways to solve those problems and potentially continue to grow. I also have a lot of expensive contracts. And if you compare that situation to the situation the Vikings are in right now, doesn't it kind of feel like we're just going to be calling to cut certain players and save cap space? And it's like, we're doing the same. We need to restructure a couple contracts. Like, it feels like a really easy way, or a really difficult and roundabout way to get to the same situation you're in right now. So I'm still not a fan of it. But hey, it's a fun roster. It would be quite the offseason to watch. And maybe that's what we're looking for at this point. We'll talk tomorrow about whatever, maybe some draft stuff. But whatever it is, I'll see you all for that. And as always, Skull.